Okay, so I want to start by introducing myself. I'm Angela Johnson. I am the technology coordinator or facilitator here at Olive Chapel. I've been here for 6-7 years now, and this remote learning experience has been unique to my position as well. So we are very proud of all the hard work our students and staff are doing, and that just by you being here today shows your dedication to remote learning, face-to-face, hybrid, whatever you have chosen for your students. So we have the presentation that I put in the chat, and I'm going to present it on this screen that I'm looking at. But so I might look up to view you all, so I can look at you while I share. So you're going to see my eyes kind of go all over the place. If there's anything at any point that you would like to ask, it's a small group today. If you want to unmic and speak, or you can put something in the chat, we can address it that way. We can really curate it to whatever you would like it to be today, since there are only 5 of us. So, and one of them is a double of me so that I can see 2 screens. So there's really 4. We are going, let me present my screen, to look at a variety of tools. And I will be clicking on and off lots of times with this. Okay, and I know that a lot of times you might hear your child's teacher say, can you see my screen? And they say, give us the thumbs up, because when they present their screen, they can't see the kids. So that's why you have lots of monitors and lots of extra tools while they're presenting. I'm going to go into present mode here, so it's a little bit bigger. So today we're going to be focusing on understanding the technology your child is using. And because we have such a unique situation with remote learning, it could be a grandchild, it could be a caretaker at a daycare center, it could be a parent, it could be an aunt or uncle, a sibling. So we wanted to make this open to anyone that wants to learn a little bit more. One of the important things that I like to share with families is that if you're not on Twitter, you can always check our Olive Chapel website. But if you are on Twitter, if you follow Olive Chapel ELEM, we post updates and links and things to everything that's going on that Twitter channel. Also, on the right-hand side, you can see a silent video kind of scrolling, and it goes through just how to get to our Olive Chapel website and how to get to the OCE virtual learning resources, which is that green banner with the hyperlink in the little laptop. And from there, you will see all the different remote learning resources along with the helpful tips and tricks. That's where I like to post all the information that we go through about all the different topics throughout the year. It's a learning process for both teachers, students, and families. So it's important to us that even though we've been doing it for 10 months now, believe it or not, that anytime we learn anything new and I can be of service, I try to create something that's helpful for families, and we'll post it here. So that is a very important link, again, on that green banner on the Olive Chapel website, and it's called OCE Virtual Learning Resources. It will not only have technology information, but anything else that has to do with our remote learning, our virtual learning during the 2021 school year. So some of the topics that were requested, there are 12 of them, so that's why we can narrow it down based on your preferences today. Google Classroom, Google Meet, there's Google Slides, Drawings, and Docs. All of that is part of the Google Education Suite for Wake County. So Google has all these applications, and then they offer an educational suite, which has some limitations, but it's for security purposes that are linked to our students' Wake County or Wake ID accounts. There's also programs like Flipgrid, Padlet, Kahoot, Seesaw, Nearpod, Jamboard, and Pear Deck. So lots of different applications. Not all teachers are using all the same. Many a times, a grade level will choose to use the same platform in addition to Google Classroom. All teachers here are required to use Google Classroom and Google Meet for their meetings. We do not use Zoom for security purposes. So within Google Classroom and Google Meet, we then have different programs that grade levels use. So each grade level is a little bit different. So that's why I had wanted to know we have a kindergarten and a second grade. So if there's anything in particular that you notice for kindergarten and second grade that you want to look at today, we can do any of those within here. So throughout the presentation is Padlet, just like Seesaw. Padlet is like Jamboard, where it's just like a whiteboard where people can add sticky notes and they can draw on it live within the class. It's just a different version, whereas Jamboard is part of the Google Suite. Padlet is a separate program. It does the same thing. You just have to create an account, whereas in Jamboard, you already have an account because it is part of Google. So throughout this presentation, you might see different voices or hear different voices. I had asked Miss O'Hare from second grade, Miss York from third grade, and Mr. Brown from fourth grade to give us some tutorials from a student point of view of what it would look like when your student is in the classroom. It's harder on my end as a tech administrator to show you what they see, whereas a teacher can show you what your students are working on a daily basis. So as you look at this maybe later and you go through, those are the voices that you will hear and you will see, I believe, Miss O'Hare in her video. So is there anything from this topic list that anyone would like to start with today? I'm happy to go through from start to end, but if there's anything burning that you're like, I really want to learn more about this, please either unmic and tell us, or you can put it in the chat.
I would want to know about Google Drawings, please.
Google Drawings, sure. And then Ms. Parkhurst, for your kindergartner, do they use Seesaw? Do you know? I'm trying to think. I know first grade uses Seesaw. They also started to use Jamboard. And of course, they use Google Classroom. Pear Deck. Okay, we can look at Pear Deck as well. Pear Deck was one of my favorites from kindergarten last year. My son's in first grade, and Pear Deck is really a nice one too to use. It's very similar to Seesaw. Okay, well that's good to know, Ms. Parkhurst. We'll kind of go through, and you guys can give me a good thumbs up or a thumbs down for yay or nay as we go through certain topics that you want to maybe skip through. So everyone here should know how to access the Wake ID portal. On our OCE virtual resource site, there are directions and videos on how to get to your portal. If a student has a Wake County device, it will automatically, when you boot it up, ask them to log into their Wake ID portal. Kindergarten through second grade should have their lunch number or their Wake ID number as their username and password. If they are in third through fifth, they ask them to recreate a private password. And if they forget, your teacher can reset that and then you can recreate it. So if you are not sure how they log in, say they go somewhere else for remote learning day and the person who's taking care of them for remote learning doesn't know their password, most likely it is what we call their lunch number, even though it's also referred to as a Wake ID number. The 3 videos listed on here are very short, just a few minutes long each, and it is just going through how to get to your Google Classroom. So what I'm going to do is share this tab instead. So this tab, I'm going to use my son's account. This tab is what a child's Wake ID portal would look like. And once they log in, here is their Google Classroom, and then their Drive or Dreambox, and lots of other applications that they might use. So if I were to go into my son's Google Classroom account, you can see that he has a lot of classrooms. So what I do for him and what the child can do that makes it a little bit easier is I always make sure that the homeroom is the first icon they see. And that if they have an instructional assistant, I make that the second room. And then this week, or last week, he had music, so music was here. What's great is that you can actually click and drag what they have. So I believe he has PE. So I could click and hold and drag and just move the order of his classrooms so that maybe the first three he sees when he logs in for quick access are his two teachers and then his special. They all are available, but it's nice to be able to click and drag and rearrange just for they don't have to keep scrolling because there are a lot of them. It's kind of like they're in middle and high school. You have a class for every period. So that is very helpful for them. Once they're in Google Classroom, a lot of the things that we see are there's the stream. This is Miss Dunn's room where they can sometimes post questions or comments. Some teachers have it turned off, some have it turned on. But most of their work will be done in this tab right here called Classwork. And that is where they will be posting your assignments by topic and either by day or week. So each teacher or grade is slightly different, but you can see that for this first grade class, they post by day their assignments, and I can scroll through and see what my son had to do each day of the week. If it is blue, if this lights up blue or green, watch, I'm going to unsubmit his work. He's going to get very angry with me. If I unsubmit, I'll show you what it looks like when it is not done. So when a child has work that has not been turned in, it will show up as a brighter color. It could be green, it could be blue, it could be yellow based on the color scheme the teacher has chosen. If they turn it in, it will be gray. So that is a quick look like, hey, did you do your work today? Did you turn it in? If you click here, you can see that he didn't turn in ELA. So if it's gray, I need to make sure that I go in and either mark as done or click turn in. The key is if you are helping a child with remote learning, make sure they actually open up these slides so that they're doing the work because there is content in the slides. Sometimes they go through the slides, but they don't actually do the work on the slides. And that is where they'll say, oh, I'm going to turn it in, but they haven't actually done anything. So he did his work today. I actually called to make sure he was done. So he would mark as done and it would get turned in. Let's go back to the presentation. So during Google Classroom meetings, they have links usually at the top of their classroom that has a banner and it will say click here to go to your class meeting. Those meeting links are there for specialists, they're there for their homeroom, and they're there for any maybe small group instruction they have with maybe an assistant. So it's important that you know when a student goes to click on something in his classroom or her classroom, here is the meet link, which is up here. We call this the banner. The great thing about the security for this is that if they go to click on that and the teacher is not there yet, I'll show you the error message that pops up. This is the error message that pops up. So you don't have to worry about a student or children going into a meeting alone without adult supervision. The teacher has to be in there first in order for them to join. So this student cannot join. He would have to wait and then reload or rejoin. Oops, too fast. Any questions about Google Classroom or anything else thus far?
Hey, she had like the teacher sends emails about like how her day should look like and what all she should do every day, like for math and for whatever EL and stuff. So, uh, is there a way to quickly like pin that particular thing somewhere on the Google Classroom? Um, that
So let's see.
the earlier teacher used to just have that slide on her first page, like yeah, here. But not all the teachers do that. So I was wondering if we ourselves can do that somehow.
So is the teacher posting things in this screen
No,
right here
she's sending us an email.
with the content of what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, there's a
So is it like a checklist on paper?
like a checklist. Yeah,
So my son has a checklist as well, and what we do is we print it off and put it next to him
every day. Okay, every week.
every
Yeah.
every week, and
Mhm.
then we just have him check, per day per assignment, and the assignment should match to what's listed in the classroom.
Okay.
The teacher could post the schedule, like the checklist, in the classroom, but the thing I have found with that is they're toggling then from multiple screens, unless you have two screens where you can view your checklist
Got it.
here and there. Um, and they do enjoy checking things off, or at least my son likes to cross them out.
Cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's helpful for us. So I saw another question. So there's no way to know when the teacher is there except for if you keep joining at the appropriate time, and they might be running late. So we had a meeting at 2:30 and it was ended up being 2:40, and my son just kept on trying every few minutes, and we ended up looking at it was an email or a message through Dojo, and it said, "We're running late, we're having technical issues." So then my son knew that the teacher was just running late. So just keep refreshing and rejoining. And if they're not there after 30 minutes, you're so welcome. If they're not there after 30 minutes, then that's probably one of the reasons why something happened. And they'll usually send out another form of communication. Let's see. We talked about these things, about how to use Google Classroom, like how to get to their classroom and when they're in a meeting. What is nice about their meeting is that they can use different views. So I'm not sure if I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to actually share my entire screen so that you can see all the tools that they have in a Google meeting. So in a Google meeting, they have this option down here to raise their hand. And when they raise their hand, the teacher gets a little bloop noise, and it's kind of like a silent, like, I need some help, or raise their hand. And then if they don't have the question anymore, they can press the button again, which is right here, and it will lower their hand. Also, if a child is asked to share their screen, like I just did, so I'd use that a lot to troubleshoot. So if I have an issue with iStation, I ask the child to share their screen. This is where they would go, and they would click, they would go here, and they would say present, and they would have three options, and it would say present my entire screen or a tab. Usually entire screen works best so that we can see everything the child is working with. These other options students love is changing their background, and we do suggest that if they change their background, like my own child, I give mine like one background a day. Like, you can change it once, but if I come through and you have a different background every time you have a lesson, I know you're not focused. So there's that. Changing your layout, I prefer the tiled view as a teacher, but when it comes to having the teacher talk and not focusing on everyone else is doing in the class and really focusing on the teacher themselves, you can do tiled view and drag to see how large it is. And then another great thing is if I wanted to see just the teacher, so say Miss Delhoum was the teacher, if I put my cursor over her name, there's a little push pin. And if I pin Miss Delhoum, she becomes the largest thing on my screen. So a lot of times teachers will ask them to pin the teacher to the screen. And the reason they do that is so that they have their classmates a little bit over here on the side, but then the majority of their talking and their presenting is coming from the teacher. So that's really important to see. Like, I just want to see the teacher nice and big. Otherwise, it is a sea of faces going all the way forth, kind of like Brady Bunch. And you have to kind of figure out, where is my teacher? To unpin it, you simply unpin and it goes back to normal. Yes, the pin is very helpful. Let's see. Let's go, Miss Parkhurst, I'm going to look at for you the how to add something to an assignment. So if this child is working on an assignment and they need to take a picture of their work, so they did it on paper, pencil traditionally, but the teacher needs a visual of their work. I'm going to show you one of the ways they can do it if they have a camera on their computer. So if these are my slides, and say the teacher asked me to, I'm going to do some secret stuff and I'll have to delete it for my son later. And they ask you to insert a picture of your work. This is where maybe they want you to insert a picture of their work here. As the student, I would go to Insert, Image, and if you have a camera on the device itself, I could say Open Camera. I will want to allow. And there I am. Now the student would take their work and as clearly as possible, and it takes some getting used to, and because it's all in reverse, finding a good spot and then being able to have a helper or someone be able to click and take a picture. And you can see here's the picture, and I want to insert. And then the student can even take the corner of the picture and drag and enlarge it. So that's one way to put it actually into the student work. It's a little blurry, but it gets the teachers what they need to know in order to see if the student is understanding. The other way would be to add a file. And what you could do here is, if you have a file on the student's computer, or maybe they're working from a tablet and you have saved it to the computer, you could add a file from their drive, and every student has a Google Drive, or something that they saved, or something that was recent. So like, say, here's a picture of his work from earlier in the week. I took it on the computer and I saved it to his computer, so I could do it this way as well. I can't attach a file because I have too many things open right now. So that is one of the ways to insert the child's work. I am going to mark his work as done so he doesn't get angry that I didn't do that. Sometimes I find that if you have the application, so the app on your phone for Google Meet or for Google Drive, if you take it and I just take a picture with my phone and then I go to the application for Google Classroom, I can then click on the assignment in Google Classroom if I'm signed in as the student and just touch like add photo, and it comes right from my computer. And that's helpful too, like if we're on the go and he can't get a picture on his computer, I sometimes take it from my phone. So that's an option as well. You can be as creative as you want. Sometimes I take a picture and I email it to the teacher because I can't get Google Classroom to work. And that's just sometimes what happens. So let's do present again. Okay. Google Slides are what you just saw us work on, and they are just Presentations, I mean, when I was in college, it was PowerPoint, right? And we still use PowerPoint. And that's all Google Slides is. But the great thing about anything with Google Slides is that everything saves automatically. So you can access it from any device as long as the student is logged into their portal. So if they're going from grandma's house to uncle's house to back home, as long as they have a computer, it doesn't even have to be the same one. They can still access all of their work as long as they're going to their Google Drive. And that's really nice so that they don't have to worry about, oh, I can't bring my computer because my mom's using it today. But if I go to my grandma's, I can use her computer and still do all of the same things. This is another example of what a Google slide could look like. And when it's like this, whoops, we're going to take it out of present mode. Now you can see it. So if it's like this, the student has their slide and they have the directions right in the blank to complete the sentence. So as a student, I would click here. I enjoy playing, and they could type soccer more than playing basketball. And then this is where there would be a submit or turn in button on their Google Classroom. So now that I did my work, I can go back to my classroom. So if this was that assignment, and then I would click turn in. And that's kind of the confusion that I see with families too. My husband is at home currently doing remote learning, and he says, yeah, he turned it in, he did it. But then when I open up the assignment and I view these slides, these Google Slides, there's no work on them. So that is where sometimes the disconnect is between remote learning and turning their work in. Let's present this again. So Google Drawings, we can look at Google Drawings. Google Drawings is a very simple, it's not very complicated, but you cannot do super fancy stuff with it, but it allows the students to use the shape tools, draw, insert pictures onto create their own image. And then they basically create their own JPEG or their own picture that they can put in places. And that would be, let's see, if I go into, so here's their portal. If I go into Google Drive as a student, I would come here to new, and then I would do more. And one of the drop-down menus for more is a Google Drawing. Always make sure they put a title or their name in the drawing. Otherwise, everything is untitled and very hard to find. So while they're in here, they can use these tools, not a whole lot, but these tools. They could do a shape. Let's say I want to do a smiley face, and they click and drag. And then once they insert an image or start drawing on their drawing, they can change the color. They can change the outline. They can make it twist and turn a little bit. Maybe they want to add another shape. And they can just play with all these different things. And sometimes teachers will say, like, create an all about me picture. So maybe they need to add their name. This is the text box where they click and drag. Now you see the original comes up very small. So they have to highlight the word and then change the size to be nice and big. We'll change ours to be 48. And they can even change the font. I always tell them, do something that I can read. Don't make it crazy, but something I can read. They can also insert pictures. So again, if you have pictures saved on the computer, you can add that. Or if they want to take a selfie, they can come here to camera, or maybe they want to take a picture with them and their dog, right? So if I had, let's use my hand sanitizer. This is my go-to. And I just took a picture and I insert it, and there's me with my hand sanitizer. And what happens is I can now just do lots of different things. I can add some lines. I can add a scribble. and then it will change the thickness. You can change again the color. So it's very much just like a drawing tool that they can use. Now, once they're done with their drawing, they can title it, and then they can just close it, because this is what the cool part is. And this is on the next two slides, is when they open up something like a Google Doc, or their teacher gives them a document. Google Docs are very similar to Microsoft Word, except that these save automatically and they're all online. So say in here, they're writing an all about me. They're writing their autobiography. And they start typing, but they want to add a creative, personalized picture to their story, maybe like a book cover. I could do insert drawing from Drive, or I could do insert image from Drive. And it would go through all my images, or insert drawing from Drive. And look, there is my drawing. Here's one I worked on earlier. And I can select that. I don't need to link it. I'm just going to leave it as a picture. And there's my picture. And now it works just like a regular photo. I can't edit what's on here now. I basically made my own photo, made my own image to put into something. And I can drag it and make it as small as I want or as big as I want. The same thing works for putting a picture into a slide. Is if I had a slide, we're going to change this to a blank one, and I wanted to add an image or something that I personally made, I could do insert, would it be image? I think it's image from Drive, and I would find it all in here. There we go. Let's go back to the presentation. The videos that you'll see in here as well later on are exactly what I'm showing you now. It just might be a little bit more in detail and a little bit longer. So Google Meet, we kind of went through already when we were in our meeting. It is the safe and secure way that they do all of their meetings. We will never ask your child to do a Zoom. It's always Google Meet. They can turn their audio off and on, as you can see with your own little icons at the bottom. We really do ask that if it's possible to have their camera turned on. To be able to see their face makes teaching a whole lot easier, and we love to see their faces. No one wants to teach to a sea of black screens. I actually met a group of high schoolers at Harris Teeter yesterday when I was grocery shopping, and they were all talking about how they never turn their camera on and that they have this class and this class. And I said to them, you know, I'm a teacher, and I bet you your teacher would love it if you turned your camera on. I said, you should try doing it just for 1 week and see how much feedback you get from your teacher and how happy they seem just to see even one face in a sea of darkness. And they kind of had to think about that. But it's really important to us that we're able to see our students if we can't be there in person with them. We went through Google Docs already, just the typing of a document. You can add things to it. The video on here goes into more detail. And now we have Flipgrid. Let's see. I don't think they are using Flipgrid in kindergarten yet. Ms. Parkhurst, have you used that at all? No? Okay. Yeah. What about you, Ms. Delhoum? 3rd grade?
Yes, 3rd grade.
Do you have any,
right now.
do you have any questions about it?
No, I just saw software doing it, like recording himself, right? When he retells a story.
Yes, and that's exactly what it is. It is a very quick and safe program where they get another join code from their teacher, and they get a camera and it turns around and they can change their filter and do whatever. And it's a audio and video file. And the teacher says, retell the story that we learned about this morning in ELA. And then the students can click on it, share the recording, and it can go privately to their teacher, or if it's a group thing, it can be shared with the class. The Miss O'Hare did a really, really great example of Flipgrid and how she uses it in her classroom. I highly suggest taking a look at that video in the presentation when I post it. And I believe I put it in the chat as well. It is a really great way of just how you navigate on Flipgrid as a student. And of course, reaching out to any one of us about questions you may have about Flipgrid, especially if it gets more complicated, Ms. Delham. Feel free to reach out to the child's teacher, myself, and if I don't know the answer, I will find the answer for you. So Padlet, I know you had asked Ms. Delham about what Padlet is, and Padlet is very similar to a Jamboard. Padlet is a digital whiteboard that students can click on and type into, and it shows things live. So I have a Padlet shown up here. And as a teacher, I would put the link to my Padlet, my whiteboard, in the chat. So what I could do is I could say share, and I could say copy link. And then what I could do, so you can see it, is I will put it in the chat. And this is very similar to what a teacher would do in their Google Classroom. So if you were to click on that, as long as we don't have any major technical issues, you would be able to get access to this board. And I could click by double clicking. I get a sticky note, and I could title it. And I could say, pretty good. No major issues. And again, you can add things like a picture. There you go, come on. And then I can add it. And so this is another way that they can have, and kids will be doing this all at once. So they'll see sticky notes pop up, pop up, pop up, pop up. And it's really neat because then they can see how their peers are doing. They can see everything else. And it's like just a really nice way to maybe start the morning. The video here goes through different ways that the students can manipulate the little sticky notes in Padlet. It just shows them how they can change the color and how they can do things. The Padlet does save. That's a good question. So when you're here, you can print it or you can export it, which would be saving it as like an image or a PDF. So that if you wanted to save the entire thing as a teacher screen, you could do that. If you are a student, you will not have the ability to save what everyone else did just for privacy. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay. So Kahoot, if you haven't used it, is, I think it's funny, is a hoot, which is one of the reasons what the creators had that in the name. It is a game show looking application. So Kahoot is really fun for students and staff. We have done it at lots of fun staff events where you have a B, C, D choice, and it's a game, and you can use it for educational reasons, and you could use it for warm-up reasons. It reminds me very much of live game shows that we used to watch, and it's very fun for the kids because it has some music and it has a timer in it. What students would do is they would get a game pin, and it would just go to the website. The teacher would provide the link called kahoot.it. And they would enter a game pin here given by the teacher. And when they're in, they would be able to see the lesson. So I will show you. So in here, what they would do is they would enter their PIN. And we'll keep going. And we have questions. So as students join, they will see their name appear on the screen, and so will the teacher. And they'll have to add a nickname. Sometimes we say like add your first name and that's it. We never ask for full names just because we don't like to keep student privacy. It is a private link though. And so now the teacher can see that there are 3 people in here, so they can see how many classmates are in there. And so it will come up as a quiz, and it might not be graded. It just might be a game. So we know that there are 5 questions, and it would look something like this. And it would say, all birds have wings, beaks, and blank. And they have 4 colorful choices to pick from. They would pick their choice by simply clicking on the color button that they would like. There is a time ticker over here that counts down, and the timer can be turned on or off depending on the teacher's preference. And then at the end of the game, or the end of that question, it will tell you if you got it right or wrong, and then it will show how many other students got it right or wrong. So it can be shared publicly or privately. So if like the teacher doesn't want everyone's answers to be seen, you can turn that off as a teacher. The kids love it. I actually love playing it as well. Okay, back over here to Seesaw. So Seesaw is something that my child uses frequently, and it can be a little bit cumbersome if you haven't used it before. But Ms. Parkhurst, if you do not recall using it, we don't have to go over it. If that seems a little bit overwhelming, we can, if you want, this presentation will be available forever, and you can always go back and look at it and review the videos listed here, or reach out to the teacher or myself, and we'd be happy to help you through it. But just to recap, Seesaw is another interactive platform. It's web-based or app-based, so I have it on my phone and I have it linked on my child's computer. They join through, just recently now, their Wake County account, whereas before they needed a join code. Seesaw links automatically with Google Classroom and Google Slides. So they usually just go to their classroom and it will just be a hyperlink in their assignment. And then it takes them to the other program so that they don't have to log into multiple programs except for the very first time they use it. What's nice about Seesaw as well is that when they are in the program, let me get to the part. The program, as you can see, as my recording is showing you, has different tools. So they can use a highlighter, a pencil, they can record their voice, they can draw on it, they can insert pictures. It's, again, very similar to all the Google things that we use. It's just that it's a little bit more kid-friendly with the different tools. So once they use it a few times, they can rock and roll with it a lot. It's a lot of fun. I personally love it when we can hear the children's voices in a recording. I love to go back and listen to the little ones read and their little voices when you can't hear or see them every moment. So Nearpod, I know, was used in third grade, right, Ms. Delhomme? Does Fwed use that? Nearpod? No?
Yes, he used Nearpod, yeah.
Nearpod is, again, an interactive platform. It's another interactive platform we have. A lot of the older grades use it. It is very similar to being able to take the teacher to take their phone or their app and insert the lessons, and then the teacher can slide the different, middle school uses it a lot too, and the teacher can control the student's screen by sliding through the slides so that the students can't jump ahead. So like I just showed you my presentation. So really, if you got my presentation link and didn't want to stay, you could just take it and leave, or you could just click ahead. Whereas when in Nearpod, if it's a teacher controlled program, they can scroll and say, okay, next slide. And then the student slide automatically changes to what the teacher wants. So it's a nice way to control that when it's used in classroom mode. You can also use it in not a live session where you're not presenting the whole thing to the class, where it can just be assignments in Nearpod that work very similar to Google Slides. There's videos, there's links, assignments, so it all kind of embeds itself. But the other feature that sometimes we don't use as much or other grades don't use and have to be aware of is that it can be used to control the slides on the student's screen, which is really nice. Again, if you have students who just are trying to click ahead or not pay attention to the slide in front of them. There are a couple different tutorials. This one is from Miss York, but it also includes a little debut from Mr. Carter. So you can see a couple different third grade teachers showing them how to use Nearpod in this video. There's two parts to this video because there's a lot of different moving parts in Nearpod. So Miss York broke it up into two different videos so that it wouldn't be a 40-minute long video. And she just goes through, again, the different features, very similar to the other ones, a highlighter, a pen, a click and drag option, add your voice recording option, just something else that they can use. Mr. Brown, our fourth grade teacher, did his version of the fourth grade Nearpod and has included it in here for anyone else as well. I'm going to go ahead and pause and ask if there are any other questions about what we covered so far, or maybe something that you thought of and you're like, I want to learn more about that, but more in depth at a later time. Anything that you can think of. All right, can I get a thumbs up if we're ready to move? I think Ms. Parkhurst might be typing. Okay, yeah, absolutely. Definitely just reach out via email and we can set up a Google Meet like this as well, where we can get your sound to work too, so we can talk. That would definitely, yeah. Go ahead and just say my email and we can talk offline. Absolutely. I'm happy to help. Jamboard. Jamboard is another program that links through Google, and it is very similar to what I showed you before with Padlet. Padlet and Jamboard are very similar, except that Padlet isn't associated with Google, whereas Jamboard is. So if I was in our Google Meet, I could say here, open Jamboard. And what I would do is I would be sharing a whiteboard with you as a student. I'm not going to actually do that because that will just confuse my computer a lot. But let's see. We're going to not do that. But I can show you. Oh, so Mr. Brown has done a Jamboard. And he walks through. So you can see already that it looks very similar to a Padlet, right? Looks like a whiteboard. It's interactive. Students can use tools like the pen, the eraser, a sticky note to type in, add pictures, and add shapes or add text to it. And it can be something that's done privately, or it can be something that's shared to the whole class. I've seen it used where it's got 20 slides and it says, Joey, you have slide 1. Sarah, you have slide 2. Owen, you have slide 3. Go to your slide and do the work on your slide. So the students will be able to click through and find their slide here using this little arrow, work on their slide, and then the teacher can see everyone working at once, which is really cool. So it's like watching all their little whiteboards do their work. Here you can see that you can add a sticky note and change its color. They can add shapes. And again, I'm just clicking through, but the video Mr. Brown did is very detailed, and he did a really good job. They also have a magic pen where it's kind of like a laser pointer. So you might see like a tail around the mouse as they move it around. Okay. Okay, Pear Deck. And I believe, Ms. Delhomme, you wanted to look at Pear Deck as well. Pear Deck, I know, was used in kindergarten last year, and it might be used throughout the grades this year as well. It's very similar to Seesaw. I use the word similar, right? Student or programmers have created these platforms because they are in great need. So it's very much on student or teacher and school preference on what they use. Pear Deck has interactive slides for students. It can be used as a group at teacher paced. It can be student paced individually, and again feeds into Google Drive with their slides. So it can be embedded within their classroom. There are drawing slides. So a teacher might insert a slide where they will have to draw. Now, if I present my screen, make it a little bit bigger. So the student would see something like this. My brother likes to go to the zoo, and the teacher might say, draw a picture of a zoo animal, and they could use the drawing tools to draw here. Now, the teacher would see this side of the screen, and they would be able to see what the child has done and turned in. So you can see that there's slight differences because the tools on the student one don't show up on the teacher one. The teacher just wants to see what they've done. I have a quick video in here showing how to use the drawing tool. It's a minute or two, so if you wanted to explore how to use the drawing tool, you could watch this, and it's, I guess I didn't embed it, I just linked it. But here we go. It's showing how you can use, there's audio directions, which are really nice down here. You can see, you can hear the teacher, which is another reason I like Pear Deck, is you can press the play button. You can hear the teacher say, circle an amphibian in green, circle a mammal in blue. So that, you know, for those students who maybe have struggle reading a simple sentence like that, it should be, you know, there's more equity in being able to listen to it and view it, and then they can work on the instructions. So any slide can have the voiceover from the teacher, and then this slide in particular is a drawing slide. You can change your pen color, you can change the thickness of it, the size of it. We used this a lot in kindergarten last year, and it was a hoot. Very easy to use. Another type of slide that can be used is a text slide. So students would see a blank screen right there, and then the teacher would insert a question. So this is where the student can type into a text slide, and there would be directions that says, type here your answer to question 1. Very simple, very clean. There's not a whole lot of, you know, bells and whistles on it. So it's not as distracting for students when they use this type of program. This is it's another tutorial, it's very short, of how to use the typing feature. And the question says, name 5 animals that live under the sea. And here is where I typed the answers. So I typed one answer and then realized that I was looking for sea animals in the picture, but then I realized that I can just name animals that live in the sea. It doesn't have to be in the picture. So I clicked add another response. And that's the nice thing, is that you can add multiple things to the text slides. Multiple choice, always easy and fun. You can create, as a teacher, a true or false question or an ABCD poll. And as the students click on it, the teacher receives that feedback and data. So it could be, what is 4 plus 4? And the answers could be 2, 6, 8, and 10. And the student picks it, and then the data goes to the teacher. It isn't shown publicly. It is only sent to the teacher unless it is a game that the teacher makes public for the whole class to see, and she or he would have to share their slide. This is an example in the video attached to this presentation of how simple it is to see the question and then click on the answer choice. A website is a third or fourth way to use it, where the teacher would include a link or embed the site. So instead of making the students go to another site, they would just put it in their presentation. Kind of like how I have put videos inside of this presentation, so you don't have to keep clicking in and out of the presentation. So that is one of the things that we love about any of these platforms, is that you don't have to open so many tabs. It's very cumbersome to have too many tabs open, even as a 5th grader. So we try to minimize that as much as we can. It's a little bit more advanced, but you can make it simple. I actually think that the visual of it is simpler because you don't have to have a class. You just have like the students thing. So like when Owen goes into Seesaw, he has like all these different buttons and tabs on it. And whereas Pear Deck, it's very much just click and drag or click and type. It can be as complicated or as simple as you want when you use it. This was a video that the teacher embedded. So this is exactly what the student would see. They would see the question on the left-hand side and the video on the right-hand side, and they would watch the video safely within this program. So they would not have to go out into YouTube, which is always a plus. If you can keep them safe on YouTube and keep them in the program, the better. My favorite part of Pear Deck is the draggables. This is where the teacher is able to put an icon on top of an image, and you can click and drag and move it. So by watching the previous video, it talked about what continent tigers are native to. So the student then has to click on the little pin, the red dot, and move it to the continent where they think tigers are native to, and then they release and it stays there, and that serves as their answer. So the teacher can then see what did they pick as the continent. By far the greatest part of this is that there are different slides created for social emotional check-ins. So I really liked when my son was doing it, where before he even started his assignment, it would say, "How are you feeling today?" And for the little ones, it had 3 little smiley faces. It had a frowny face, it had a straight face, and then it had a happy face. And they just would click on how they're feeling today, and then their teacher would get that sent to them privately, just so they could know without having to ask the student in this group out loud, "How are you doing? Are you okay? You look upset." Where they could gauge in here privately how they're doing today. This one has a drag bar, so I would take this purple bar and I would move and click and drag and release it as to where I'm feeling on that day. This one's a little bit more advanced because it has more words, and you can, go from 0 to 10, whereas there are very simple ones where it's like, "I'm doing great, I'm not doing great," and they pick on the thumbs up or the thumb down. I think social emotional well-being check-ins are super important during remote learning because we're so isolated, that it's good for the teacher to know if he's having or she's having a rough day, maybe that's why they didn't turn in all their work. Or maybe that's why their work wasn't their best effort. They did say they were having a rough day in their check-in. So this is, a nice piece to it that we don't get to have since we're not face-to-face. Pear Deck as a company has a great website, which is linked on the slide at the bottom, for remote learning tips for parents, caregivers, for anyone that needs to know a little bit more about the program. Many of the things that I pulled onto this presentation came from that site. So when you click on this presentation, separately on your own, it can take you to this Pear Deck site. And you can even just search Pear Deck remote learning, and they have a great site. I'll actually show you. So when you use this presentation, you click on that link. This is what that page looks like. And I just went to right here. Yeah, absolutely. I love that they have a parent and caregivers tab because there's so many of us that are working with people beyond our own children. And then it has a short video about what Pear Deck is. This comes from the company, not from our school, but it's still good to know. Some tips about using Pear Deck at home. And this is what I use for our presentation is experience Pear Deck as a student. So you can try it out. And this is exactly what it would look like. And it tells you to use these buttons here at the bottom to click through the slides. It has some advertising in it. And then it goes through, just like I showed you on our little screenshots, what each type of slide would look like. So I really like it. I think it's a great program. I highly recommend that you go to their site if you have to use Pear Decks. They have some great information. Whew, and that is all I have, even though that is a lot, right now for it. Do you have any questions that you would like to talk about right now? I know, Ms. Parkhurst, we're gonna talk offline at some point this week and answer some more questions and give you some more tools to use helping your grandchild. But anything right now that comes into mind that we didn't cover or that you think you would want more information on?
I think you covered everything, Angela. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy
It
to
was
help.
awesome.
It's a lot, right? It's a lot, but knowing that not every student uses every application can be your assurance that I don't have to know all of this, right? You only need to know what your child or your student that you're working with is using. So that's why we did all of them, because there are so many different ones.
So it's a choice between Seesaw and Pear Deck. Is it true what the teacher wants to use?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Most of the time, grade levels will try to all use very similar platforms. So I know first grade all use Seesaw.
Yeah.
So if, like if different first graders have to flip classrooms and stuff, because we switched from, you could pick virtual or in person for second semester, we're still using the same platform since we still have remote learning days. So.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Angela.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to put in the chat the link for, oops, come on, exit. For feedback. We would love as a school to be able to, excuse me, hear your thoughts, right? And as you kind of let this all marinate, let us know what you thought and what else you would want to know. If anything comes up, even after we leave this session and you really want, again, to reach out to the teacher or the teacher's not sure, you can reach out to me. Again, we are always open to help. So there are things that come up at the drop of a hat and we can help you with it. And there are some things that I don't know the answer to, but I'm happy to find it for you. So I will put my email in there. And then again, so we'll put that in there. I'll also add it to the presentation. I'm going to put that in my notes so that we can share it. The last thing before we go is I want to show you the Olive Chapel website and where all of this will be housed so that even after today, you can go back and find it. So here is our Olive Chapel website. Oops. This green banner, this has been up here since March. So going on 10 months, we update it as often as we need. You click on this link here. and it will take you to all of our virtual learning resources. The daily schedules, a getting started guide in case you're just getting started helping students with their remote learning. This is really important too. This helpline for Wake County, they have created a specific technology help desk for families. On the left-hand side, you can see that there are broken into subpages, so you can see more about just the schedules. So we have our daily schedules with a nice color coding on here for families. Teachers do usually send out their schedules because they might tweak them a little bit and be more detailed, but you can have a basic schedule of each grade on here. This is very helpful too. These are the days in which we have remote learning. It's connected to the Wake County site, so they're always up to date. The page that I do my most work on is helpful tips and tricks. This is where I will be adding our presentation. So many of the things that you saw in the beginning of the presentation came from this, and it has very short videos on how to do different things, some troubleshooting, general troubleshooting, different things to do with Google Classroom. Most of it's Google Classroom. And then now we will be able to add all of the other things from our presentation, like Pear Deck and Jamboard. So this page is going to change a ton after we do this session, because now I'm going to be able to upload all of this information to here. So when you come back, we will have some updated stuff on here. We'll have this presentation on here, all the videos on here, this recording on here, so whatever you may need. And that is about it. I only went 17 minutes over, which is not bad. I thought I would be here for hours going through it. And I appreciate you all coming. I appreciate you knowing that we appreciate knowing that you are so supportive of the students here, and that you're doing an amazing job. No matter what level of technology information you have, you are doing a great job, and we appreciate it so much. So if you don't have any other questions, yes, no, thank you guys so much for coming. If you don't have any other questions, I will let you all go, and then I will work on getting all this information posted for you by tomorrow afternoon. And Ms. Parker, make sure you reach out to me, okay? Okay, good.
Bye, Angela. Thanks so much.
Bye. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.